Okay, the worn Zeon 12 Platinum. Really hard to get your hands on one of these right now, sadly. Took my brother, how many weeks, Mike? Took a month to get this. Would have even been longer for a synthetic line. But we love this winch. It's proved itself many times. I have this winch on Recon 1, and today we're going to install it on the Gladiator. Beautiful Gladiator, getting a nice upgrade today. Obviously, we got to remove this little piece of plastic. We'll take this front bumper off. Mike bought the worn winch plate, which we've had some experience with before, and it's really a real good stout winch plate, and everything should fit really nice here. So this should be a rather easy install. So here's an electrical plug for your fog lights. It's over on the frame rail right here on the passenger side, and you can disconnect that, and that way all the wiring stays in the Christmas trees. You can see the harness right here, you know, the little plugs. That way all that wiring will just stay integral into the fog lights. Then there was a skid plate that covers the sway bar disconnecting motor right there that had some 13mm head bolts, 7 of them. So that was removed so we can get in there. Now we got good access. I'll get under there and show you the bolts that we're going to take out, which are 18mm, and then this bumper will drop right off. Look at the nuts. They're 18mm. There's 2 on the inside, 2 on the outside on each frame rail. We were able to get the gun with the swivel and get the driver's side out. This side's a little tighter here with the sway bar and so forth, but it's going pretty well. All right. Awesome. Okay, Mike, we got some more work ahead of us. Beautiful though. So at the bottom of the frame, you can see here, it curves down and you have these flat plates right here. And basically at the bottom of this plate, there's a threaded hole, and the skid plate has a bolt that goes through it. So it's utilized basically to hold up the back of the skid plate. But you end up taking these 2 16mm head bolts out, you drop this down, and then we're going to be sandwiching in these brackets to hang the winch plate on.
I don't have a unit bit, so.
Some modifications here. So what happens is there's spacers that make the skid plate sit farther back, so the last 2 holes that go to the bottom of the frame rail don't line up. So it's just common to readjust, drill these out, hit them with a unibit so that the 2 bolts line up underneath the frame. Over here, these brackets, they go on like this. I got everything kind of loose because, you know, you can see that this gets a little tricky here. These carriage bolts come through, and they're going to go in the back of the winch plate, and then we'll kind of get things in place and then tighten things up once they're in place. And then they give you a couple tie wraps to just tie wrap the front to take the pressure off of it, because obviously the bumpers or the bolts that are integral to the bumper go through, and they give you spacers right here because you got 1/4-inch steel here, so they give you a spacer here to make it level. So it's coming along. Okay, so as strange as it looks, when you look at those brackets there, everything looks like it's on a strange angle. But the winch plate bracket that attaches to is on the same angle, and that ends up lifting the nose of the winch plate, so she sits fairly level. And then the tie wraps are just to kind of hold some of the weight off. We noticed that inside here, we had a hard time getting that bumper out because the metal doesn't line up here. This would be a factory thing. We got to open that hole up a little bit, make it easier so that it looks like these. But basically the winch plate is in the go position for the winch. That's really good. Not bad. I'm gonna come underneath here so you can see that. See the brackets right there, how they attach, and then the 2 carriage bolts go through the bottom of the winch plate. Sits really nice. This really is a gorgeous winch plate. Okay, so the
I can't help you there. I don't
two
have it.
cables have been worked carefully behind the grill, and there's just not a lot of room on the JL. It's quite a bit different from the JK, but we got the wires in position, so that's the bulk of that. The nuts were placed inside the base, and then we just took some electrical tape to hold them in place so they don't fall out, and those will be dropping down on the winch plate, and we'll bolt them up from the bottom. Go, not gonna lie to you, floor jack helps the best. So we kind of had to keep things loose. This winch is so damn big that it really takes quite a bit of work. This is the second Zeon Platinum I installed, and you can't help but get a few little dings, but it doesn't affect the worn winch. But it is just so big. Look at the tolerances right there, okay? Maybe 1/8 of an inch on that side. This side here, you're actually on it. So, in retrospect, I guess I could have took a grinding wheel and tried to grind a little off the corners here. So if someone has a new Gladiator, they might want to do that before they put this big Zeon Platinum 12 in. But we're good with it. She's sitting level. The bolts underneath are all installed and nice and tight. So cables are up into the engine compartment. So we'll be undoing this, unspooling it, pulling about 1 foot of cable through there, and we'll start prepping the bumper and getting everything ready to put back together and get this tied in. Gorgeous though, really looks good. So moving along, you just sandwich this plate right here in between the roller fair lead. You can see they give you no freaking room. You're just taking a wrench on an angle, and it's like this winch fits, but everything, the tolerances are so tight.
Your end needs to be
Yeah, it needs to be tightened up some more. So right now the bumper's just sitting on. We have the outside nuts caught. Everything needs to be, this whole bumper needs to go forward more and suck in. But in order to access this, we thought let's do it while it's loose. So it's doing pretty well. All right, so we're doing some fine tuning. The bolts inside here are all tight and they're extremely difficult. Now they give you some nuts and bolts, and you just fill this in where the plate once was. Presses it up. So here we go. Worn winch installed, tested, hook. We're going to work on the license plate setup. He'll run the same setup I do with the clips that just clip on the rollers. Skid plates back on down in the bottom. So like anyone that's installed this worn winch in this anniversary bumper on a JL, it all comes down to you waste so much time on the 18mm bolts inside there because you just really can't access them. You're on your back, you got extensions, swivels, extensions, absolute disaster. Terrible how that works. But that's really just the hard part of the job. Quite honestly, everything else is pretty good. And then I guess you could say that the worn winch, you got to shoehorn the damn thing in there. It's so freaking tight. 0 tolerances. So that's a little unfortunate too. But what you get is the world's best winch. And it does look good. And Mike and I are very, very pleased.